Old nut out, new nut blank in place, loving it. Perfect press fit. Okay, that ramp back is now cut. Now we'll get the original nut and get the string spacing right. We've used the original nut to get those initial lines across the crown of our new compensated nut. I've done at least 2 or 3 videos on this already, but we'll show you again. Basically score those initial lines across the crown of the compensated nut to duplicate the spacing of the original nut. That's where we start. I flip that and open up the bass string, the A string, the D string, there's the G string, then our B string, and high E string. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, you always want to leave a little bit of forgiveness side to side. Don't cut that flush yet. You've got a bunch of operations to go through before this is finished, so leave yourself that little bit of forgiveness on both sides. We've cut our initial values in there. Now we'll smooth it out and move it to the next stage. We've put that elliptical curve on the front end, got rid of all the sort of notches. Now we can put the strings on and start filing those slots to their final depth. This is how I hold the guitar as I am doing the final filing of the nut. So I've got that headstock in the center of my chest, and I can actually eye down the fingerboard and I can see the string spacing and keep that in place as I file those nut slots to the final depth. These are the Hosco files. You've seen me use it tons of times. You get them online anywhere. That's kind of how I hold the file, and I'm pulling it towards me, and of course the headstock is in my chest. I've got my entire body weight is the inertia against the file. Like I've always stressed in the guitar repair and design courses I've been teaching the last 25 years, I stress to the students to go easy, a little bit at a time. Don't file all 6 strings to their final depth. Work them down a little bit at a time. Make sure your string spacing is right on the money as you go. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with the E string right now. Now I'll switch over to the A string. I do angle the slot so that it naturally points towards the inside of the string post where it's going to end up. Still nowhere near the final depth. I'm just kind of making my way across here. Here's another angle for you. Start by going straight and then gradually tilt that file and point it towards the inside of the post where it's going to end up. I am checking the spacing between the strings because that's what this is all about. I'm not really tuning the guitar, I just want enough string tension to kind of hold that in place, and we've left enough height in the nut that we can easily move it over. Now, G string, same thing. Start by going straight through because I've already got that spacing right. Then very gently angle the file towards the inside of that G string post. Okay, I'm liking that. It's looking good. B string. Same thing. I've got the headstock in the center of my chest. Leave enough height on that crown so you can adjust it as you go. Okay, last high E string, and it's actually going to slant in the opposite direction to catch the inside of that first string post. I advise my students and anyone else who's trying this for the first time to put a little protective cover over the face of the headstock so there's no chance of scoring it with a file. I no longer cover the face of the headstock because I've been doing this for a few years. I have the headstock in the center of my chest, so I've got my entire body weight against the force of the file, so nothing moves. No vices. Never put a guitar in a vise in my life. I had a guy drop off a Strat today that mentioned he had his Les Paul, then he got it back and there were vice marks along the edge of the neck. I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of guys out there using vices. They'll probably get their nose out of joint when they hear me say this, but I always thought it was kind of like doing brain surgery with vice grips. It's just way overkill. You know, some of these vices are like engine vices. I mean, one turn, you could put an extra 1,000 pounds of tension. Anyway, I won't rant on about that. We'll just move on and suffice it to say, I don't use vices. I want the real string load on this. At this stage of the game, you really need to proceed with caution. Because we've ramped that back, there's not as much material. It will go down really quick. Like I said, it drops down pretty quick at this stage, so careful. You don't want to have to start all over again. Final depth of the slot is determined not by the string height, but by whether that first fret note is in tune or not. And this is what we end up with now. We've made those slot depths quite a bit shallower, so there's zero chance of any binding while you're tuning. Last thing you do is flush that nut out. Leave it a little too big. It always gives you the option after all this work you've done to line those strings up perfectly side to side. Hey, here's our moment of truth. And that's the wrap up on that J-45. So that compensated nut is done. All the values are cut. The action's adjusted. Frets are polished. Bridge is intonated. This is all for EJ19s, which is a bluegrass string, 12 to 56. Here's another view of that finished nut. There's the other side. And remember, this is a good firm press fit, no tightness or looseness. Now that all the final values have been cut and adjusted for perfect intonation, we'll just twirl some glue in there and actually glue that nut into place, press fit into place for the final time. Well, here's that J-45. G, D, A, E, even taking a simple C form that everybody knows. Incidentally, this is the second set of EJ19s that I put on this guitar. By the time I'd finished the setup, I had tightened and loosened and tightened and loosened. Strings are just not made to be tightened and loosened that many times. You can get away with it once or twice, but... So, right at the very end, just now, I put a brand new set of strings on and did all of the most minute adjustments to get this thing to behave. Wrap up on that bound fingerboard refret. Those frets are polished and buffed on the outside edge. This is set up for EJ16, so just regular 12 to 53. And with the EVO fret wire, it's good for years to come. This 1967 ES125 is next on the roster, and we're going to kind of bring you up to speed on how we take care of this type of guitar with that trapeze tailpiece. There's some tuning issues with this one as well. Frets need to be dressed, and he has requested a compensated nut as well. So stay tuned, and we'll show you how to stay in tune.